Hello everyone, I am Jack the Intrepid Train Traveller, and this is going to be the first video of a series. This is a video of intent. You could say, have become slightly obsessed with drawing train maps. It all started, if you can cast your eyes back to 2015. I was in year 12 at school. For any foreigners, that's when you're age 16 to 17 here in the UK. And over the summer, going into year 13, which was my last year of school, you had to do a project, and it could be on pretty much anything you wanted. And so, me being me, I decided to do a research project on how the railways in the UK were going to change over the next 25 years, so up to 2040. And then I compared it to how, at the time, I wanted them to change. And this was my first foray into drawing a Great Britain-wide map of the British railway network. And so, of course, with the project, I did three. One for 2015, one for 2040, and one for my hopes and dreams. But within doing that, it opened my eyes into the array of ways in which not only our railway network was set to change, which have since quite damningly been pretty heavily slashed, but it opened my eyes into this, I want to say art, but it became my main hobby, drawing train maps. And I constantly would be changing my mind about how I think the best railway network for Britain would be. I've drawn the British railway network since then, almost obsessively, I think about 10 times. And the scope for these train maps has expanded. It's gone from there just being one massive train map of just heavy rail lines for Great Britain to me making dozens of track layouts, proposed tram networks for cities all across the country, proposed metro networks for, say, our 10 biggest cities, and proposed extensions for London and Newcastle. And then COVID. You remember that 2 years where it was like we were locked in and then we were allowed out again and then we were locked back in again, and everybody across the world were locked inside their houses. We had a lot of free time, especially me. I was furloughed during that time. And that is when the train map drawing got even more obsessive. I went international. So having done probably by that time 7 versions of Britain, I'm getting a really good idea of not only the state of the network and what lines were likely to be opened, but also the extent of old railway lines, why some of them closed, the detriment it caused, a lot of the infrastructure that was still in place and the ones that could easily be reopened, and all these other ideas that other enthusiasts had. But then I was exploring how other railway networks in other countries operate, and I did propose maps without even going to the countries themselves, because you couldn't, of New Zealand, Australia. My biggest two were France and Spain, but I also did Norway. I did Norway and parts of Sweden after actually going there. But within that process, it was probably the best thing I did for influencing my thoughts on how best to organise the network here in the UK. It was discovering how the rest of the world was organising these things. And of course, there was loads of countries that I researched the railway networks of, but never bothered to draw maps of, because they have populations like over 100 million. And in this time to now, I think I have got the best rail, tram and metro proposals for Great Britain that I could come up with. So I've given this one the royal treatment. I have a Facebook group. Originally I just put pictures of trains I saw, but somehow during a period where I wasn't putting up any pictures, it got 600 likes. So I thought that would be a really good place to put up pictures of these networks, and not only pictures of a drawn out network of, say, a Milton Keynes tram network or a Yorkshire suburban rail network, but also screenshot Google Maps and draw on it in real life where the tram lines and new rail lines would go and where I'd open new stations. I put them all on Facebook as my first symbol of intent to have this one pushed forward. And one of the good things with Facebook, I've had engagement. I've had people commenting and liking and asking questions about how it works. Then my next step, because in these pictures I never really gave any description of what I was doing. Sometimes I'm not the best with words, it takes me a while. So my next step of intent was myself. I'd never been part of a transport advocacy group, but I found one in recent times called En Route, and it's for public transport advocacy in general. So with that, my first piece of research on that would be for an ideal transport network for West Yorkshire, as it is not only the biggest conurbation in the country, but in the bloody continent, with no rapid transit. And then this series I am starting is to be my next step of intent. I have come to the conclusion that I think the best way for me to describe not only the routes my extensions and new lines and blah 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 would take, but also why I think they should be constructed, what benefits I think they'll bring, and how maybe I think they could be constructed. And therefore, hopefully, with being on YouTube, get it out to an even bigger audience. I'm going to start this series breaking down all the different levels of different types of train service in videos, starting off with intercity and night trains, and then we're going to break it down into all-encompassing tram, metro and suburban network for our biggest conurbations in the country. Then talk about more sort of rural, semi-urban regions we have in the country, and then regional rail in between the conurbations, sort of in the Midland North spine of the country. And as the videos about services come to an end, I will start talking about other things such as branding, wayfinding, the eternal abyss that is British Railway ticketing. This is one of those things where either you just rage quit and take the car, or you're like me and you try and find the site where you think an algorithm sorts it all out the best. To the other end of the spectrum, where you have people who are like crazy into understanding ticketing. I have a friend who's sort of into this, Albie, who runs the channel Super Albs, so hopefully I'll be able to pick his brain. And here's where you get involved. So not only the typical stuff, if you are a railway enthusiast, if you're excited to see the expansion and improvement of the British Railway network, not only like and subscribe, I'm never going to ask for that again. What I am going to ask more for you to do is comment your ideas in the description below if it relates to specific types of train service, in the comments to not only the Facebook pictures I've taken of my proposals for those services and network, but with the YouTube video when I make it. And if you have any ideas of how we could raise the money to get this, for example, the Versement Fund they have in big French cities, or how you think it would be best to have it constructed, an order, comment that too, so that we can massively increase the scope of what I talk about in the video, and you will definitely get mentioned at the end if you've helped me formulate the script and order for the video about whatever specific region. And then for anyone who works in the railway industry, whether it's for a TOC, a railway engineering company, transport or railway advocacy group, or journalist, tell me your thoughts, get involved. Show it around to your colleagues, see if they have any thoughts. I really want this project to get as much traction as possible, and hopefully I can be a uniting force for all the different transport advocacy groups with all their different ideas from across Great Britain to all come together under one umbrella to be a really big force towards the government to encourage funding and investment into improving our railway network, and hopefully get in place structures for its continual improvement, because the amount of ideas I really hope to get forward, it is going to take 30, 40, 50 years for them to all be funded and constructed. But I am determined. I have been Jack the Intrepid Train Traveller, and I will see you in my next one, all about how best we can improve intercity trains. Hello everybody, it is Jack the Intrepid Train Traveller, and there's a boat going past.